What if I told you that somewhere in your house, there's a door you've never noticed? A door that doesn't exist during the day. A door that only appears when the clock strikes midnight. And what if I told you that behind that door lies something impossible, something that knows your name? Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of Marcus Webb, a man who found that door, a man who made the mistake of opening it, and a man who was never seen again. Marcus Webb had lived in his 2-story colonial house for 7 years. He knew every creak in the floorboards, every crack in the ceiling, every shadow that the streetlights cast through his windows, or so he thought. It started 3 weeks after his divorce was finalized. He'd been having trouble sleeping, the kind where you lie awake counting the hours until dawn, your mind replaying every mistake, every word you wish you'd said differently. On one of those sleepless nights, he'd gone downstairs for water. That's when he saw it. The grandfather clock in his hallway chimed midnight, and as the last echo faded, something changed. Between his living room and kitchen, where there had always been just a blank wall with a painting of boats, there was now a door. Not an old door that had always been there, not a door he'd somehow forgotten about. A door that absolutely, definitely had not existed 30 seconds earlier. It was black wood, ancient looking, with a brass handle that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Marcus stood frozen, glass of water trembling in his hand. He rubbed his eyes, looked away, looked back. The door remained. He approached it slowly, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. When he reached out to touch it, the wood was ice cold and seemed to pulse under his fingertips like something alive. He didn't open it that first night. He couldn't. Fear rooted him to the spot until 12:01 a.m., when the door simply vanished, as if it had never been there at all. The painting of boats hung innocently on the wall once more. Marcus convinced himself it had been a hallucination, stress, exhaustion. Maybe he was having a breakdown. But the next night, at exactly midnight, the door appeared again, and the night after that, and the night after that. For a week, he just watched it appear and disappear, too terrified to do anything more. But curiosity is a persistent thing. It gnaws at you. It whispers. On the 8th night, Marcus's hand closed around the brass handle. It was cold enough to burn. He turned it slowly, and the door opened without a sound. What he saw on the other side made his legs buckle. It wasn't his kitchen. It wasn't anything that should exist. Beyond the threshold stretched a landscape that defied every law of physics he knew. The sky was purple and green, swirling like oil on water. Mountains hung upside down, their peaks pointing at him while their bases dissolved into clouds. Crystalline structures that looked like buildings but bent in impossible angles dotted the horizon. And everywhere, there was movement in the shadows. Shapes that almost looked human but moved wrong, jerked and flowed like stop-motion animation. The air that drifted through the doorway smelled of copper and ozone and something else, something ancient and rotting. But worse than the impossible landscape were the voices. They started as whispers, so faint Marcus thought he'd imagined them. Then they grew louder. "Marcus," they called, in tones that sounded almost human but not quite, like someone doing an impression of human speech without quite understanding how it should sound. "Marcus Webb, we've been waiting. We knew you'd come. We knew you'd open the door." The voices came from everywhere and nowhere, overlapping, echoing, some high-pitched and childlike, others deep as thunder. Some spoke in English, others in languages he didn't recognize, syllables that hurt to hear, that made his teeth ache and his vision blur. "Step through, Marcus. Step through and see. Step through and become. Step through and understand everything. All your questions, Marcus. Every answer you've ever needed. She's here, Marcus. Your mother who died. Your father who left. The life you could have lived. Step through. Just step through. Marcus slammed the door shut, gasping, sweat pouring down his face despite the cold. But he could still hear them, muffled now but persistent, calling his name until 12:01, when the door vanished and blessed silence returned. Marcus tried to research it. He dove into forums about paranormal experiences, read about dimensional doors, parallel universes, fairy portals, spiritual gateways. Nothing quite matched. Most stories he found were obvious fiction or the ravings of unstable minds, but a very few, described something similar. Doors that appeared at specific times, landscapes that couldn't exist, voices that knew your name. None of those stories had endings. The authors simply stopped posting. Marcus told himself he wouldn't open it again. He'd ignore it. He'd sell the house. But every night at midnight, there it was. And every night, the voices were louder, more insistent, more persuasive. They started saying things they shouldn't know. Details about his childhood. Secrets he'd never told anyone. The exact words his ex-wife had said during their last argument. The dream he'd had the night before. We know you, Marcus. We've always known you. This door has been waiting for you specifically. You were born to open it. You were born to step through. Stop resisting. Stop fighting. You know you want to see. You know you need to understand. He stopped going to work. Stopped answering calls. He just waited each night for midnight, standing before the door, listening to the voices, watching the impossible landscape shift and change beyond the threshold. 3 weeks after he first saw the door, Marcus made his decision. He'd stopped sleeping, stopped eating. His reflection in the mirror showed a stranger, hollow-eyed, gaunt, desperate. The voices had become his only companions, and some part of him had started to believe them. Maybe they were right. Maybe there were answers beyond that door. Maybe this mundane, empty life wasn't all there was. His divorce, his loneliness, his failures. Maybe on the other side of that door was something better, something meaningful, something vast and important and true. At 11:55 p.m., Marcus stood before the wall, waiting. When midnight struck and the door materialized, he didn't hesitate. He gripped the brass handle and pulled it open. The landscape beyond had changed. It was darker now, more defined, as if it had been waiting for him to commit. The voices rose to a crescendo, hundreds of them, thousands, all calling his name in tones of triumph and hunger. Yes, Marcus. Yes. Step through now. Come to us. Come home. Come to where you've always belonged. Marcus took a breath, his last breath in this world, though he didn't know it then, and he stepped through. The door slammed shut behind him with a sound like thunder, and then silence. When Marcus's sister came to check on him 3 days later, she found the house empty. His car was in the driveway, his phone on the kitchen counter, his wallet, keys, and shoes by the front door. But Marcus was gone. The police investigation went nowhere. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of foul play, no body, no leads. Just another missing person case that would eventually go cold. But Marcus's sister noticed something odd during one of her visits to his house. At midnight, while she was packing up his belongings, she thought she heard something. A sound like whispers coming from the wall between the living room and kitchen. And for just a moment, just the briefest flicker, she could have sworn she saw the outline of a door in the wall, a shadow of something that wasn't quite there. She left quickly and never came back. The house eventually sold to a new family. Sometimes late at night they hear whispers. Sometimes they think they see their young son standing in the hallway at midnight, staring at the blank wall as if seeing something they can't. They've asked him about it, but he just smiles and says, The door says it's not ready for me yet. It's still waiting for someone. So tonight, when you're lying in bed and the clock approaches midnight, pay attention to the walls of your room. Look carefully at the shadows. Listen for whispers that might be calling your name, because somewhere, in some house, in some city, in some country, the midnight door is appearing right now, and it's always, always looking for someone to step through. The question is, will it be you?